Hello everybody, I'm Lorenzo Marchese and I'm here right at the beginning of this video we're about to watch to remind you to subscribe to my channel. It's very helpful if you do, and also please tell your friends, your family members, and share it if you can. Love to hear your comments and feedback, but just want to make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching and we'll see you soon. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Geek Authority's Making Entertainment. I'm your host Lorenzo Marchese, and this is one of the shows where we actually go behind the scenes of various projects, productions, all kinds of things that you probably didn't know what goes on in order to make these projects come to life for you to enjoy later on. This is a particular special show because I've never done one with a podcast group. Basically, they do a podcast, Star Trek themed, and because of it, they've got quite a few followers and patrons and so on and so forth. But let me introduce each of them to you. Welcome, everybody. We have Nathan Adams, we have Heather Ferris, we have Patrick Hall, and we have Rocky Robinson. Yo. This is the group known as Starfleet Underground, correct? Did I get it right?
That's us.
Starfleet Underground.
Okay, so with that said, let's start at the very beginning. Okay, I don't have the rights for that. We can't sing it. How did this podcast come about? Do you all four know each other? Did you all four come up with it? Did you say, hey, let's do something?
Who wants to tell the story where it all began?
Well, it's been a long time.
It's been a long road.
From here to
Oh, God, don't,
here, yeah.
Stop it.
Sorry,
Jesus,
folks.
people.
It's been a shorter road for me.
I blame Heather, but that's because, oh, she's over there. I got to point the right. Well, it depends on which screen you're looking at.
Yeah,
But,
she's over here for me.
I met Heather about a couple years ago at one of the Star Trek conventions. And
Las Vegas?
Yeah, Las Vegas. And aside from just suddenly falling in love with her madly, which, it's more like at her, not in love with, because it's never returned when I fall in love with someone. It's always the other way.
That's
But
another
say la vie.
you need a self-return addressed envelope. That's why it's not
what I
coming
need.
back to. You need
That's what I need. But I chased her around the convention, and she was doing her little YouTube channel stuff, and I was helping her carrying her tripod back and forth, and that's how I met her and became friends. And then she's you're a Vegas dealer instructor. Is that what?
So I typically do Vegas Aces, vegas-aces.com. It's a free online dealing trade school where we teach people how to deal casino table games, and we help place them at no cost. And then for my vacation, because I would take a week off from work. So my vacation once a year was I would go to the Star Trek Las Vegas convention, and I would shoot a ton of videos on the panels and what was going on there and talk with the people and get kicked out and then sneak back in and, have all that kind of fun. And that's where I met Rocky. That's where I met Nathan. That's where I met Patrick. And we've been friends for Rocky and we met 2 years ago, and then Nathan, we've met, God, I think it was like 7 or 8 years ago with Nathan. It's been almost, yeah. And then Patrick, I met last year. So what happened?
So
We
how did
met before that.
We did?
Last year there was no convention.
Were you sorry?
So, I was watching one of her Vegas Aces live streams, and a bunch of us are, we're all geeks and we're all talking about sci-fi and video games, and they're all like, Heather, you should start a podcast. And I'm like, yes, you should. I should totally. And we're all chatting at her, start a podcast. And then we dropped that hint into her head, and I think it boiled for a while, and then she actually decided, hey, do you guys want to do a podcast? And I'm like, yes I do. I think this will be fun.
Okay,
and then she brought on these other guys.
Okay, so so basically you kind of conceived the concept and then you brought Nathan and Patrick in. My question is, was the concept of what you have going now, which I was fortunate enough to be a guest on, thank you, and is that format we hear today that we're hearing I think it's Monday, you drop them?
Yeah.
Is it the same format you started with? Is that how it all began?
I
Well-
think so, isn't it? Mostly.
No, I mean we changed a few things. Yes, no, 50%.
It grew a little bit, but the idea was the same as we gather together and we're. I think it became the Nathan introed it as we're on the Starship, and then it kind of went from there. I mean, the Tribbles were always going to be characters.
Well, Fred brought the triple. So
Yeah.
when we started, like Rocky was saying, he approached me with the idea of the podcast, and my first reaction was like, no. I got way too much crap going on, like it ain't happening. And then it took like a week or 2 or 3, and then finally I'm like, okay, let's try this out. So I asked Rocky, I asked Nathan, we asked Fred, which Fred unfortunately passed away last year. But we asked everyone to join, and we asked also another friend of ours, Tapan and everything. And Tapan ended up not being able to do it, but she comes on as a guest a lot, which we're very thankful for because she's so freaking awesome.
And she's a Vulcan ambassador, and she's
so cool.
So civilized sounding as a Vulcan ambassador.
Yeah.
The most level-headed of us all, for sure.
Okay, I want to back just a little bit. Everyone's mentioned Fred. Let's talk a little bit. He was part of the original group. Who, and what was his involvement? And then, obviously he must have passed away. So,
well, Fred was one of the, when you see Heather at a convention, and you like follow her around, you're not the only guy following her around. There was other guys, and Fred was one of them. And she was obviously very friendly with Fred already. They met before.
Fred was a good friend of mine.
He was one of the nicest guys you've ever met. I'm very sorry I didn't. Fred Butler.
Fred Butler.
And we honored him. We named our Starship. We got a new Starship over the last couple of months ago, and we've named it the Butler. The USS Butler.
USS
named it after him.
So let me bounce it to Nathan real quick. Now the Starship concept is you're a fandom group. You have your own Starship, which is built around the Star Trek universe. Now, remember, there are people watching who have no idea what Star Trek is. So you want to kind of give them a little basics. Yeah, you're all laughing. I can see it. Those 2 people on the planet who are watching. So, Nathan, tell us about the Starship that is basically the house of this podcast.
When we first got started, as Heather mentioned, we were basically a loose type of podcast. And we figured as the show progressed, along with Fred and everything, we migrated to the concept of having a starship. For those of you who don't know, the reason why they call it a starship, and you'll probably go, duh, is because it's basically a ship that can travel the stars. But it's kind of like if you ever watch Buck Rogers or any type of sci-fi, we base Starship off of the Deep Space Nine Defiant class. So we use it on that principle. So we stay cloaked most of the time because we're still in the Delta Quadrant. Yeah, well, yeah, my mic does come in and out.
Your mic, it comes in and out.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we're seeing it on the screen come in and out.
Yeah, that's because I borrowed the cloaking technology. I'm actually somewhere in my ready room, and I'm too close to the cloaking field. So that's why
the battery's going out.
So
the Tribble was sitting on the button.
Yeah, that probably would do it. So the Tribble is probably over there. But what happened is that once we came up with the concept of it, we ran with it. And because of our engineer, we are able to apply sound effects and everything else. It really brings the podcast to life. When Fred first came on, Patrick likes to tease me that I know a lot of knowledge about Star Trek and I can outgeek people. Fred was probably one of the only people that I met that could outgeek me. His knowledge was extensive, and he'd call you on it in a second. And I still miss that voice when I say something like, well, James T. Kirk, they never really mentioned his name. Actually, Nathan, they did mention his name once, and it was in the original series, and it was Tiberius. So just like little things like that. He was really, really awesome, and his presence is still missed and felt. However, we have a close second when we brought Patrick aboard. And Patrick does an amazing job. He does our corrections and everything on the Starship. He's our computer person and our liaison. He does our reaching out to people and checking the emails and everything else of that nature. Heather does science, which basically goes into what food can she burn in a galley today. So
which is everything.
So she's managed to say that everything has a flammable limit. So we haven't found anything that she hasn't managed to figure out how to burn yet. But it makes it more fun for people who love the show. It allows someone for an hour to suspend belief and actually feel that they're on the Starship with us. And that's why we have that concept. We wanted to give into it.
Very cool. So Patrick, when people are tuning into this Starfleet Underground podcast, what can we expect? What kind of format is your show? When I was a guest on it, we did an episode of Enterprise called Oasis. So I'm tuning in for the first time. What can we expect to hear?
Oh, we'll cover the episode, and we'll go through in sections. And Heather will go give us a synopsis of the section and a fun title. And then we'll cover whatever's in that section. Usually it has to deal with when the commercial breaks happen on either Paramount Plus or wherever you're watching the episode. So we'll cover that, and then we'll try and cover some of the themes that may be occurring in the throughout the episode. But we just like to have fun with it. You know, we're nothing's off limits. Well, except religion and politics, and you know.
And sometimes it happens to happen anyway.
Yeah.
and Nathan's breath.
I do want to we should make a point here that this is not for young people, right?
No. So we make a disclaimer at the beginning of the show. If you have kids, get them out of the room.
Yeah. So if you're a child, don't beep 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 and beep, beep because we'll beep and we will do beep beep beep, beep to you. Beep.
Basically,
so don't do that.
Basically, it's adult content as well as a little bit.
Very much so.
We don't bleep anything.
No, it goes
anything goes.
Over. That is correct.
Okay. Let me bounce it to Rocky here. Rocky, technically, to put on a show like this, what does it take? You've got your regular, you included 4 cast members, shall we call it, and then of course you have guests, and I've heard sound effects and all kinds of stuff. So, tell us about the technical side.
Let's see. So everybody's gone the Zoom world and remoting into things and doing that. So that makes it easier for a lot of people to do this kind of thing. Heather is a camera friendly person because she has her own YouTube channel, or several actually. And so she's savvy in that regard. And you fit right in too, because you do this kind of thing. And I don't know what happened to Nathan, but we got him a nice microphone, and Nathan worked in radio before I worked in radio. So I worked in radio as well. I was never a talk show guy. I was always playing the music. So a talk format is actually a completely different and new thing for me. And because it's Star Trek, it's also a lot of fun. So we all sign in onto this service. You could use a Skype or a Zoom or whatever, anything that gets the audio. We use one called Clean Feed, and it's based, I think, it was designed to, like, people like the BBC use it. So radio stations, it's a radio station tool. So it's very high quality. And the most awesome thing about it.
Is it a service, or do you pay for it? Or
it is a service. I think they have a free version, but we're paying for a small monthly fee to use it. And it MultiTracks. So for anybody who edits audio, you get everybody's audio in a different track. So you can edit things till your heart's content, which is wonderful, because when we're all remoting in, from different places of the world and talking over each other by accident, it's very easy to fix those edits.
It's never by accident.
Yeah, sometimes it's by accident.
Rocky does such a good job editing.
Right, I've heard them, and so the question I have is, if you're mixing up, I'm assuming like 5 or 6 channels of audio, and people are talking over each other, you can actually lift so we can hear what each and every.
So the cool thing that Clean Feed does is it gives you all the audio, and it's all in sync. I don't know if everything is in sync today. When this kind of started a year or two ago, some software solutions were not always keeping in sync. You'd hear people complain about that. This one was absolutely in sync. So I get all the files after when I finish the show. I hit the stop button, I download all the files. Very important step. You can't forget to download the files, because that would be bad. You download the files and you put them in. I use Adobe Audition, so any multi-track audio program could do this. I'm using Adobe Audition. Line up, the files line right up. Get the start of the files, pop them in there, and then find the start of the show where we start the theme music, and the Clean Feed software has a place where you can put little sound effects in. So if you want the theme music, you hit the little button during the show, and it plays the music for you. So you can bring in clips on the fly.
you're doing mixing as you're recording it.
Well, not really. It's actually doing it all itself, and you do it. I do the mix afterwards. So the beautiful thing about this, if you're a real audio geek, you start talking about doing audio gating and compression and noise filtering, which is amazing because sometimes people have air conditioners running in the background. Sometimes there's a dog barking. Occasionally there's an echo, but you can do all these wonderful audio tricks, and it makes it work wonderfully.
It's funny you say that because Patrick's note to me when I did your show was make sure your air conditioning's off, and I read that and I'm thinking, okay.
It's really great. We've gotten rid of about 80 to 90% of Patrick's flatulation noises. It just cuts it right out. So
okay, we're gonna
and the other trick about this though, so I do 2 passes on the show. I do a multi-track edit, so I fix all the overlaps, and then I do an edit for pauses in between and little fixes. So we are not all perfect speakers. Sometimes we say the wrong word and then correct ourselves. So you can very quickly fix that. And then sometimes you can you stutter. People stutter. I do it. I'm doing it now. You're thinking about stuff on the fly. You're trying to come up with. Some people are really good at it and sounding seamless. Some people are not. With editing, you can fix those kind of things. And then we can also pick up the pace. So when we record in the morning, Saturday mornings, we're like, oh, it's Saturday morning, let's do the show. And sometimes you need a little pep in there. So you're pausing naturally when you're saying words. Sometimes you can pause for effect. And sometimes you're pausing just to think of what you're saying next. So you can take those pauses out, and suddenly the show sounds high-paced and very fast.
Okay, so the show is recorded pretty much in, what, an hour and a half?
Yeah, about an hour.
Okay, so how long does it take you to edit to the finished product to drop on Mondays?
Now, that's the catch. So you have to enjoy this. The multi-track pass is not too bad. It happens just about, same amount of time, an hour or two to listen to it and fix all the pauses that I can fix in the overlaps with those things. The longer one is after I do that pass, I get the 2-track mix down, and that's where I chop out the little pauses and fix the little flubs. Most of those happen then. And that can take a full day's worth of work.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it can take a while.
Wow.
But it's a lot of fun.
Okay.
And you can't tell when you listen on Monday, sorry to interrupt a little bit. When you listen on Monday, when I hear the show, I'm like, I was there and it didn't sound this good. The way Rocky does it is
sound effects and creative production side of it is a lot of fun too.
I listened to several of your podcasts, and I'm amazed. I was thinking, am I going to hear all this while we're doing your show? And I'm like, oh, you put a lot of work into it.
Some of it can happen live, but a lot of it is easier just to do after the fact, and you can do it a lot cleaner.
Like when they blew me out an airlock.
Okay.
Somebody got blown out an airlock. That happens.
Yeah,
and he had no idea.
Okay, I want to backtrack. I want to backtrack a little bit with each of you. So I'm going to start with Nathan, and I'll go around the room because your Zoom picture's different on each screen, I'm sure. But Nathan, tell us a little bit about where you're from and when you first got interested in Star Trek.
Okay. Originally, I'm from the East Coast, from New York. Got into Star Trek. This is going to show my age. Is when I was a little boy and it was aired on TV the very first time. My father was watching it, and I remember sitting with him watching Star Trek. And when Captain Kirk talked to the computer and the computer went working, I went, I want to work with things like that. And that drove me to want to be in the computer field, which I am now. I remember him buying a color TV set because for those of you that remember or old enough to remember, NBC was proud as a peacock. It was the first time things started to show up in color. And as we talked on your show last time, Lost in Space was the first one to do the color, and Star Trek quickly followed, and it was amazing. And I fell in love with the Star Trek all the way
Lost
through.
in Space, just real quick, the Lost in Space thing was they're the first ones to transition into color.
Into color.
Right. When Gene Roddenberry pitched Star Trek, one of the things is because the production designer Matt Jeffries was colorizing, the whole set and the design. NBC said, we're going to launch this in color. So because even though 50% of the audience was still at black and white, they knew that this Star Trek, or Gene knew, whoever, the producers, Gene Kuhn as well, knew that Star Trek was going to look good in color.
Which you had to sell those TV sets.
Now, a little trivia for you, since I know how much you love trivia, Lorenzo, is that Jeffries is the reason why it's called Jeffrey Tubes, because he came up with the design and special effect for that. And to segue in when it comes to the color, when they did the show with the first Orion woman, they kept sending it to the lab and she wasn't green. Every time they got the print back, she wasn't green. And they found out what was happening is when they sent it to the color lab, they thought it was something was wrong with the shoot. So they kept color correcting her green skin.
And who was that person?
Oh, that was the lady in green. They have a woman in green. They have a thing on that for her.
The first person to do the screen test for the Orion was Majel Barrett.
Oh, I didn't know she did the first.
She was the one being rejected every time because they color corrected. Yeah. So, aha.
So you added on to that. Yes. Outstanding.
Right. Heather, let's hear a little bit about you.
My name is Heather Ferris. I live in Las Vegas. I was not a Star Trek person until 8 years ago. I don't know. I have to actually sit there and count now. I'm starting to get old. And what happened was two of my friends actually paid for my ticket to the Star Trek Las Vegas, and they dragged me to there, and I went kicking and screaming because I'm like, this is going to be boring and this is going to suck. And I brought my camera and everything, and I'm like, okay, I'll just record some video while I'm there or whatever, get some practice in because I was trying to practice. And I went there and I had such a great time, and the people were so amazing, and grabbing the video was so much fun and everything, and it was just so awesome that I went back every single year after that. For the whole year after that, like I went home and I binge watched all of Star Trek. And it took me all a year. So by the time the Star Trek convention came back the next year, I was ready, And I live only 15 minutes away from the Rio. And I figured I would get video, and that way the people who couldn't make it, at least they could still have the experience and everything. So I, did what I could and snuck myself in. And, I was a employee for a while, but I, wasn't actually doing anything. But I would always try to get in and get video and stuff. And that's how I met these awesome guys.
Wow. Woo-hoo. All right. Yeah. Patrick.
I'm Patrick Hall. I was born in Hollywood, so I was born to be a star, which hasn't happened, unfortunately. I've been into Star Trek since I was a little kid. I remember in third grade, I wrote my own Star Trek stories. We had to do creative writing, and I had the whole monologue memorized. So it's just been in me since day one, And then Nathan and I, we worked together, we did work together. We went to our first con together, which was Farscape. And then from there, we started going to all the other cons.
Okay. So, and a little side note here, you do recruiting. I've seen you at many conventions, the LA convention, Star Trek convention, Comic-Con. Have you done Comic-Con? Have you guys been down?
Yes, we have a table there.
That's right. Hello. Many pictures with you at Comic-Con. You're in the upper level with the food area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how long have you two been doing that?
San Diego Comic-Con's only been since 2017. That was our first year there, but we got the table there because we'd been at WonderCon for 5 or 6 years. And when they knew us from WonderCon, and they knew that they didn't have any Star Trek fandom tables at Comic-Con. So when one came open, they emailed me and asked me if we wanted to do it. I'm like, yeah. So it's been great. We've had a really good time. When we're there, we're with our other Star Trek group, which is the USS Navarus, and we raise money for different charities. I knit beanies. Excuse me. I knit beanies that we raffle off for the different charities.
Or you could get it from one of our Patreon tiers.
One of our top tiers, you can get a beanie knitted by Patrick Hall himself, and he does it in uniform.
Wow.
Oh. I thought he was doing it out of uniform.
I thought he was naked too.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. Let's jump to Rocky. Rocky, what's your background?
I went into broadcasting. So when I got into college, I was shoved into radio, TV broadcasting. And I'm like, I don't want to be on TV. I don't want to talk on the radio. I mean, I was very, very introverted. And I love the technology. And that's why they shoved me that direction, is the technology side of things. I took right to it. So I, started to, I'd got a couple gigs in radio, and you realize really fast that if you really want to make money in radio, you've got to be in the sales department. So that's, it's a lot of fun, horrendous amount of fun. But I was also interested in TV at the same time. So I got an opportunity to go back to my college and work as a staff member in their TV department versus getting a full-time job working at a Christian talk radio station in their production department doing commercials and things like that. And I was like, okay, well, I want to be a rock radio guy. So I don't think I'm going to go that way. I think I'm going to go this way and learn more about the TV. That's the direction I ended up going. So I kind of got out of the radio side of things. And I'm a video editor, studio engineer, and of course we're all in the Zoom mode, so there's no studios for us anymore. It's very strange for some of us.
And what about when did you first get grip on Star Trek?
And Star Trek, don't forget about Star Trek. I just grew up with it, so through the 70s, it was always something that was on TV once in a while. The classic original series was always in reruns. So that was something always to watch. And then, of course, in the 80s, The Next Generation started in. And it was like, what's this new Star Trek going to be? This is kind of strange. This isn't Captain Kirk. Because, we watched the movie, we wore out tapes recorded off of a cable channel for, Star Trek 2, that kind of thing. I've had that upbringing of VHS tapes. So
I had Beta. You remember Beta?
We never got the Beta, but I know about Beta, being a video engineer. So Star Trek was wonderful. It's always been wonderful. And I even went through and I missed a lot of DS9. So I had to go back and rewatch Deep Space Nine. And it was amazing and wonderful and a joy to find. And then Enterprise came on and we started to watch Enterprise. And then, when it was airing originally, I had to work. So I wasn't able to watch it all the time or tape it all the time. Kind of fell off of that. So in the recent years, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, I started rewatching because it was on, it was on Xbox. So you could watch shows on your game console. It was so strange. But I was watching Star Trek. It was great. I kind of caught back into that, and then Netflix comes out, and they've got all the Star Trek. So yeah, you start binge watching, and Star Trek's always been a great part of life. I've never been able to do anything with it, and I was never a convention goer. I was one of those guys saying, maybe I'd go to a convention, but I'm not going to be one of those dress up guys. And I went to my first convention.
Ray, what's the how do I say this? The general plan for the podcast? Because right now you're kind of going episode by episode with Enterprise. Did you start with Enterprise and you're going to continue through all the series? How's that work?
We started. I think we picked up in Discovery. Picard. Picard, because Discovery was already out, and so that's when we were super excited about Picard, and I think we came out a couple weeks before it actually came out. Those guys saw the premiere in person. You lucky suckers!
Early.
Yeah, they got the early premiere, and
we're talking about Cinerama Dome. Is that what?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Talk about jealous. And being careful about spoilers. Heather loves spoilers. I'm like, no, don't tell me. I don't want to know. So there's that dynamic. But yeah, we got hooked onto that, and it was so much fun. And then boom, Discovery. We got a lull. So let's talk about Discovery. I think we rewatched through season 2 of Discovery, and then
Lower Decks.
Lower Decks came out then. So
Yeah.
when Lower Decks came out, that was really, so we hopped right on to Lower Decks, and then we got to the current the latest season of Discovery, and then it was like, okay, now what? So what do we watch now?
Are you going to go into the original series, TOS?
Oh, eventually,
Well,
I'm sure we'll hit it.
First, we have to finish Enterprise,
Yeah,
and that's going to take us 2 years.
Okay, 2 years.
I've mapped it out.
Wow.
Yeah. And of course, once the second new Star Trek comes back on, we're going to go right back to that. Especially Heather, because she's really enjoying Enterprise so much so far.
Okay. So for people who, again, not familiar with Star Trek, all 2 of them on the planet, what would you say is the appealing factor that makes people rewatch all these shows and follow the fandom, as well as great podcasts and YouTube channels and all this. What is it about Star Trek? Anybody?
It's character driven, and it's a show built on relationships and optimism
It's
about the
people
future.
element.
Yes, and you really wind up caring about the characters. It's kind of like a soap opera for everyone that's based in sci-fi, because you get a chance to really be more optimistic about. It would be nice to think that in 300 years we'll still be here and we've learned to get over a lot of our petty differences. So
it's better than a soap opera, because soap
Yes.
operas are horrible.
Thank you for saying that. I was going to jump in if somebody.
It's a sci-fi future that you want to
Yes.
live in, because
This is
it
true.
represents the best ideas of humanity and
Mhm.
It's
collaboration and working together.
Exactly.
And totally including everybody.
And
It's got all these great positive aspects.
one of the wonderful things about Star Trek is they always find people who are the enemy, and then they bring them on and we learn from their point of view. And it's not all bad, it's not all good. There's gray, and there's a lot of humanity behind the other, people and everything. And I love that about Star Trek. And they do that with every single, season series. They bring on someone from the opposite side, and now they're one of the, crew members.
Right.
The only one that we haven't had, and Heather hits on a good point. If you look at almost every enemy that Star Trek has, they wind up coming aboard and being a friend. Everybody from the Jemadar to the Founders to the Borg, because you have you. The only species we've never seen that came on was species 8429. But just about everyone we've come across winds up being a part of the crew. And it shows that if you really try to listen and to understand where somebody's coming from, you can meet them on ground.
I'm gonna throw a little my Trek philosophy. I think what they do is, and I respect them for the writing, is they do these moral plays about making choices and making decisions where you have to see both sides. And I don't necessarily believe that every enemy in Star Trek has turned good. What I do believe is that every enemy that any of the captains or the series have gone through have learned to understand and respect why they do what they do. And if they can bring them over, they do. But not all of them.
Key word. That's that key word right there, is respect. And that's what we need. A lot of people to respect the reasons and everything. Like we talked about before, is that you don't sit around, what? You believed in that people live in a wormhole and you're God? Oh my God, that's stupid. That's idiotic. This is, hey, you believe that. That's good on you. I'm fine. I'm going to go worship Kalis. And that's what it is. It comes down to respect.
Yeah. And it's also not just one evil person. Like, we all understand that there's like some really crappy ass people out there. I think what it is when we do that, we're doing, not all of the Ferengi are bad, not all of the Klingon are bad, not all of the Borg are bad, that type of a thing. You can't generalize and say all of them are horrible when you're not giving them a chance and you're not listening.
Right. Or putting yourself in their shoes or their heads or whatever they have. Patrick,
they're alien antennas.
Yes.
What do you think? What's your?
I think for me, it's the way they go about digging into the human psyche and the human experience, and how we respond to different things. Like in the original series, they had the episode where the people were black and white, one half of their body, and black and white on the other, and they hated each other because they were white on one side, but the other people were the white on the other side. And it was like, you watch that and you're like, you realize how, stupid's not the right word, but how stupid it is for them to be fighting with each other because one person's white on the left and one person's white on the right. Well, you're both white and black, I mean, so it's you get these morality, like you said, morality plays, and it teaches you to be more open and to be more respectful, accepting of other people and what their differences are. Because when it comes down to it, we're all basically the same. I mean, we may look different, but we're all, we're energy having a human experience.
We're all bags of water.
Yeah. And one more thing too.
There have been many episodes like the Gorn episode and the Next Gen when you're dealing with gender issues, and Voyager dealing with disease. There's all kinds of topics that we only feel or see one side, but if you look at the other perspective, it's like, okay, maybe what they're doing or how they're doing it is not necessarily bad. It just works for them, and we have to respect that. Period. That's their way of doing it. We don't understand it. We don't like it. Not our responsibility to play, judge, jury, and executioner for the universe.
Right.
The one skill I think that Star Trek has taught me, and I think people overlook it and miss it. One of the most important skills I think it tries to portray is the skill to listen. Mm. So many people wait to talk and they don't wait to listen. If you notice, anytime there's any type of disagreement, they actively try to listen and understand. And how many people try to do that? They just basically wait so they can give you your counterpoint without fully listening to you.
Exactly.
Yep.
Wow. Rocky, what do you think? Star Trek.
Oh, wow. I mean, for me, it's a wonderful escape into a crazy, adventurous world. It makes you think about things. Some TV shows you just don't watch to think about things. And it's not necessarily always a thinking man show. I mean, I'm just an average guy, I think, and I just get into these stories. The stories are wonderful. The characters are amazing. If you look at it even on the modern day stuff, the production values are huge. I mean, back in the day, it was all, Christmas bulbs and glue, but the stuff looks amazing today. So Star Trek is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I don't know if have you guys caught the TOS, the original series with William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy, with the newly CGI'd animation? Have you guys seen those episodes?
No.
Mm-hmm. The remastered one, Patrick, when they went back and they took the originals and they remastered and
all the effects, all the effects
and stuff they cleaned up.
Yeah, it's very interesting. They redid all the special effects, so all the exterior ship visuals. They redid that with the modern day 3D.
Not only that, but even some of the sound effects and the visuals of the magic.
When I got my my modern day TV with the LED based TV, the OLED, not to brag about my TV or anything, but it was amazing just to put on old Star Trek that's been remastered. And do you think the colors were amazing back in the 60s? Freaking jumps off the screen at you. It looks amazing. It's wonderful stuff.
I think Gene Roddenberry would be so impressed with what they did. And I don't know if you know, but when they did the remastering, Mike Okuda and Denise Okuda supervised all of that. So, there's one scene I just watched recently where it's an effect shot of the Enterprise doing a flyby, but it kind of zooms from the saucer to the cigar section. And as you're zooming by, you can see people in the windows, with doors. And I'm like, oh my God, Gene would just flip with this stuff.
Yeah, that's really cool. You get the surround sound effects when you go out to the exterior shots. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool and fun. The only thing I can pick on is there's one of the episodes where they had a chronometer, counting the time. And in the 60s, it was a spinning dial, literally a spinning dial. And they redid it with an LED, and it just didn't feel right to me. But I grew up with the original stuff. So
as soon as you started saying that, I know what you were going to say. So
yeah, okay, good. I'm not the only one.
It brought me out just a little bit too. But
yeah.
I got lucky and talked to a guy that was working on it when they was first doing it. He gave me an advanced thing of what they were doing. And one of the things he said that there was a scene where Leonard Nimoy spilled coffee on himself and he had the coffee stain on his tunic. But when they filmed it, you didn't see it. But when they went back to do the remaster, it was obvious that he had spilled coffee on it. Yep. Yeah, they said they had to go through and correct it. And the lines for his ears, they said you could see the seams. They had to go through and fix that. So it's impressive. You're right. I mean, Khan's ship doesn't look like a roll of toilet paper anymore. It looks like a real ship.
Yeah, you can tell when they remastered it, like in Enterprise, when the Vulcans, you can, or the Klingons even, and you can see the difference in the gradation of their foreheads or their ears. When it's in HD, you can tell the difference between what's prosthetic and what is real.
Wow. So let's talk a little bit about that since we're on the Star Trek thing. How do you feel about let's see, if you look at Enterprise, they've got LCD screens, and that's before Kirk, which has basically candy pieces on their thing, and then you jump to Next Gen, which is all kind of backlit kind of doohickeys, and Voyager and so on. so forth. What do you think? Do you guys relate to the? Are you okay with the technology that you see? Can you?
I can, because being again in the service, you have ships. So you have a destroyer class ship. It's in service. It was made, let's say, 1975, 1980. Ship still works, still great. But then you get one that just came off the line in 2021. The inside of that ship is going to be radically different than the other one. They're both destroyers, and they both have the same equipment, except one has been updated. So that's how I look at it. So you have different ships to the line, but one may have more mixing technology. They actually explained that a little bit in Discovery, where he said he didn't like all the hologram communications and rip it all out because it was a problem. So when Pike said that, so this
Right, but pulling out of this of the show in terms of the canon, as a
Right.
viewer at production design, does that jerk your mentality a little?
No, they tried to do. I've heard people when Enterprise first came on that they were upset that they had touchscreens, even though it was supposed to be before in the Enterprise, the original one for the original series, and yet they had touchscreens and they didn't. And so it didn't bother me, because sometimes you just got to suspend belief in that respect. So you got to figure, well, these are prototypes in that, rather than being so done up like, oh my God, that's not a salt and pepper shaker that he's supposed to use in medical. What is that he's using? So it just takes away from it.
You can't continue to like nitpick every single little detail
I
of a
agree.
show, because then it just becomes too cumbersome to produce the show. And you got to hire all these people who are examining every scene to make sure that it's not breaking some kind of canon law.
Like
Yeah, I know people who won't watch the original series because they can't handle the the bouncing rocks and the wobbly doorways and all that. And I'm like, it's not about that. It's not
Every time they went to the planet, it was the same soundstage. They just kind of tweaked the color background a little and moved the rocks over or something.
Well,
the
Next
same harp
Generation did
music.
the same thing. Stage 10 at Next
Yeah.
Generation.
Or they go to those rocks in wherever those big rocks are.
Vasquez rocks.
Vasquez rocks.
No, today's Star Trek is phenomenal production quality. They aren't cheaping out on the production whatsoever today. So when you see today's Star Trek, you're seeing the best makeup, you're seeing the best costumes, you're seeing the best set designs, and oh my God, what's going to happen next season? Because they're going to employ that same technology that the Mandalorian did with the virtual background screens, the wraparound virtual room.
My goodness.
So what are they going to do with that? It's going to be amazing. You're seeing great animations and 3D effects. So if you're not even into Star Trek, but you like science fiction a little bit, you should like today's Star Trek.
Okay. On that note, let's talk about the new Treks. You mentioned earlier the lower decks. You mentioned Picard. You mentioned Discovery. So everybody's enjoying that branch of Trek?
Totally.
Yep.
Having fun with it. Lower decks is made me laugh, because you always try to think, whatever happened to the B side? You always see the A crew. So what's going on with people who supposedly work night? What's going on with them? So it was kind of cute that they had lower decks. You see the people that aren't necessarily the stars and what they have to talk about.
And then seeing Picard come back, I mean, that's just, you cannot ask for anything more than having Captain Jean-Luc Picard back on the Starship.
I agree with that sentiment. However, I'm one of those. I guess you call me a naysayer regarding Discovery and all of that. I think they missed the Star Trek mark completely. It's not the most Star Trek related Star Trek like television series on TV right now is called The Orville.
Love that.
In terms of storytelling, in terms of character development, in terms of being interesting.
Seth is a huge Trekkie, so I mean, of course, he's going to incorporate the themes of Star Trek into the Orville.
And we only have one season of Orville. We have so many seasons of Star Trek to watch.
No, there's 2 seasons of Orville. The third is going to premiere next month, or
2
2 months.
seasons.
Yeah.
I guess I binge watched and ran them both together.
But I gotta say, I couldn't get into Discovery. It just didn't feel like Trek or look like Trek or sound like.
People like yourself and people like us is why Star Trek is still here, because people like you that have a vocal comment about what is not right, it's being heard, obviously, because they turn around and took the showrunner away and they're getting a new showrunner. So they're looking at it and they're looking at the critique. They're trying to pick, okay, what did these people like? What did these people hate? Let's try to find something that's going to meet in the middle.
And season 1 is always the worst. With every Star Trek, you always have the worst season in season 1.
Yep.
Okay.
They take a couple seasons to get up to speed to find their voice.
I thought DS9 did great right out the gate. I thought Voyager did great out of the gate. Enterprise took 2 seasons. Next Gen took 1 season. Star Trek, the original, I thought did great right out the gate. But anyway, besides that, I just I'm into the behind the scenes a lot. So I'm a big Star Wars fan, and in terms of I've been following what's going on at Lucasfilm and Disney, more particularly, like Paramount Plus, formerly CBS Access. There's a lot of management change going on there, and 2 of the things that are going on are the new king or passing the baton on for the Star Trek franchise, as well as the Star Wars franchise, because there's another person over there that's on their way out as well. So basically, for me, it's about story and characters. And I just didn't get it in any of this new Trek. Picard tried, and then where it went with what's going on in that universe, it's kind of like, I don't think Gene would bless this. Like George is not blessing what's coming, what has, those 3 last movies. And I don't know if you heard, as of 2 days ago, George is getting involved, maybe getting involved back, because he sold it originally. So same thing with Star Trek. They're looking to change the hands, hopefully get it back on track for me, because the majority of the people aren't watching it. It's the lowest rated show.
Now, see, one of the things that gets me a little confused on that, I understand and hear what you're saying, but when you had the J.J. Abrams stuff that came out, a lot of the original fans didn't like the J.J. films. The new people did, but then you had Star Trek, into wasn't Ink and Darkness, Star Trek Beyond, that you had Simon Pegg had wrote into, and it was originally a lot more Star Trek than the other 2 films were. And a lot of the fans like it, but the overwhelming public didn't.
Well, that's not true, because they made 3 because they were very successful. And there is the 4th one that just got greenlit. So that universe for me was okay because they splintered. Yeah. They didn't mess with the canon. They created their own canon, and I'm okay with that. If Discovery had created its own universe, I would have been okay with everything that's going on. But
didn't Discovery do that when they went to the future?
That's why they did that. I have never seen the 3rd season. I have no interest whatsoever. But I'm told the reason they did that is because so many people hated what it became or was, that they had to put right at the scrape.
Yeah, it's very interesting, the style, if you look at it from a writing point of view. We grew up watching these shows from the 60s and the 80s, and those writers were really good at what they did, to write a story, and they hold you on TV for under an hour. Now, today, we are a completely different set of writers. Hollywood is totally different. Movies are completely different. The action of the JJ universe, fast-paced, really fast-paced. They gotta give you the lens flare. They're obligated to do that for some reason. So they gotta really overdo it and keep the action going. But I think you lose a little bit of the I think you lose a little bit of the sci-fi fun Star Trek that was there originally. So you're trying to do both, and they're trying to find that mix. I think they're still working on it. I think they're getting better at it.
I disagree. I think their entire writing staff needs to go. If you look at the Orville, the writing staff there, it's all about story and character. Making Michael Burnham Spock's brother.
I'm not saying it's not weird. It definitely is a little bit weird, but I'm still on board with it.
The first season and second season of Discovery all had the lens flares, which even in JJ's stuff, I got a little tired of. But at least the first movie had the story and the content. I thought the second one was a little bit more of a ripoff with Wrath of Khan. The third one, like Nathan said, I think it had more Trekishness to it. but it overall didn't kind of grasp the Wrath of Khan or the Voyage Home kind of Star Trek
the
energy.
first and third of the JJ movies were really, really good. The second one, I agree. I don't like what they did with Khan. I think they missed out on an opportunity to do something different. And they just kind of, not really.
No complaints about Benedict Cumberbatch. I thought he did.
Oh, he's great. Great actor. The one thing you do find in Star Trek is there's not a bad actor, I don't think. Well, I mean, you can make fun of Shatner, but
what are you talking about?
The pause acting.
No, wait a minute. This guy's got
Magic
5 Emmys.
Blood.
Yeah.
5 Emmys.
Yeah.
I don't think any other Star Trek lead has those. So
that doesn't matter.
Star Trek, though. It's not for Star Trek. It was for
Boston Legal.
Boston Legal.
Oh, that was phenomenal.
Yes,
yeah,
because
I
loved
him in Boston Legal. He was amazing in that show as Benny.
Benny Crane.
Benny Crane, yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so about the podcast, any other insights you want to share and let people know, either behind the scenes or
it's rumored. It's not confirmed 100% yet. But if you listen to our podcast, it will make you younger.
Yeah. We don't have any scientific data to back that up yet, but
no.
But we have plenty of scientists on the show. No data.
We're gathering it. We're working on it.
When we first started, my hair and beard was completely white. It's becoming to get more salt and pepper the more shows we do. So we find a way that that the aging is coming back. Patrick used to be like severely overweight, and he's now turning into like a bodybuilder. So it's really, really cool. So again, the show, I can't honestly say we have it to back it up with, but yeah, the evidence is still out. And Rocky, oh my God, when he first came on, he couldn't write his name fully. Now he's solving mathematical equations, running around the hall going, Einstein was wrong. So it does great things for all of us.
Rocky looked like Captain Caveman when we first started.
Yeah, so it was
it's
really
amazing
really
what
cool.
a haircut can do in the COVID land.
Oh my God.
Wow.
I had never seen anybody put dreadlocks in nose hairs, but listening to the show, it's amazing. So I don't want to say that we do that, but listen to us. You might find it does good things for you.
Okay. In terms of your guests, what kind of guests have you had or are you having? I didn't ask that question.
I can let Heather answer that or Patrick.
So one of our guests was Bill Blair, which was an alien actor on Star Trek. He did a lot of different roles and everything, a lot of different characters and stuff. Patrick, what was the
Todd?
Our friend Todd Stashwick.
Yes.
He was been on an alien, or he was a Vulcan in Star Trek.
Yeah, and he was on 12 Monkeys. So.
Okay.
Phenomenal. We also had people like yourself, which we were graciously love to have on. We've had other podcast groups. We've been lucky enough to grab some of the celebrities. So we're working on getting more. So cool. We're thinking that when we're in Vegas, we're actually going to like kidnap one, rush him into the bathroom and make him do one. So,
okay.
But then the rest are just friends that we know, people who are like our friend Stephanie, who has her own podcast, who's a writer and producer, our Vulcan ambassador, so we pull from people that we know who are huge Star Trek fans and or who are in the industry.
We interact with people on Twitter too. The Yum Yum podcast, a lovely couple from Australia, pointed out on one episode that we forgot about that Worf had a brother. And it was like, hello, he had a brother. And then we just like, who? What? And brother, his name is Kern. Yeah. Do not forget Kern, because they haven't.
Tony Todd, right?
Yeah, that is correct. Tony Todd, infamously known as Candyman.
Among others.
But yeah, so we play with some other podcasters too. If you chat with us on Twitter, that we've gotten a couple episodes from them.
We had a podcast from the guys from England too.
Oh yes, the guys, those guys, the two Marks.
Yeah.
They have the Disco Fever podcast and the Picard Talk podcast, and they were delightful because they have matching senses of humor to our senses of humor.
And
I got to admit,
Alien, was it Area 51? What was that one, Heather? The guys from Area 51 as well.
Area 15?
Was it Area 15?
Ryan. It was that Ryan guy.
Ryan.
Oh,
the other Ryan guy.
I'm thinking you're talking about something in Las Vegas.
She lives too close to Area 51.
That's
so
what
when you
it
say
is.
Area 51, she's like, no, I was just there
That's
the
your
other day.
brain.
I had to go pick up some
My
milk.
brain
I got
goes
it from
to.
Area 51 because that's where I live.
Seeing the aliens, yeah.
The UFOs fly by her place all the time.
I was like, what alien did we have on that we're talking about from Area 51?
Heather, did we ever, that guy ever came back, the alien that's a shifter, and he told us that any celebrity we want, he could like morph into for us
Yeah.
with the voice, but we never get back to him because he was creepy.
I want to key in something Rocky just said. I agree with the international. I had an international guest. He was a production designer on Sequest, and he lives in England now. So that whole conversation was exciting and
Nice.
yeah, it's on the show there. Real quick, last thing I like to do with all my guests is I do kind of what's called a fast round of questions. Basically, kind of single answer kind of a situation, unless you've got a great story behind it. But questions like, who is your favorite captain in the Star Trek universe? Nathan?
You would call on me first, right?
Heather?
Oh shit! I'm second.
Okay, Patrick?
my favorite
like
cap. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Nathan.
No, I guess my favorite cap. Oh my God, that is so difficult. Okay. It would have to be a toss-up between Avery Brooks and Patrick Stewart.
Cisco and Picard. Okay.
Cisco and Picard, those two
Heather.
blended together.
John Delancey.
Okay, yeah, I guess you could tell him the captain.
Technically, Q was the captain because he's the one that steered the ship. So
Several times, actually.
Yep.
Patrick?
Picard and Janeway for me.
Very good. Oh God, what's her name? Kate Mulgrew.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Patrick Stewart. Rocky.
Oh gosh, I have to go classic with Kirk, but I'm loving the current Pike. There's that.
Yes.
They bring
Yes.
Anson Mount is bringing the original Star Trek feel back into Star Trek. If you really paying attention, so I can't wait for his series to kick off and we get some of that because he was.
That's why I'm growing my hair out so I can do the Pike do.
Nice.
He might just very well dethrone all the other captains for me. I fell in love with him as an actor on Hell on Wheels. The guy is just friggin' amazing. He has got such a presence on screen. It's just unbelievable.
Okay, next question.
Okay.
Your favorite theme? One theme from any of the series.
I know.
Like-
I know Heather's not. Least favorite.
Oh no, acceptance of other people for who and what they are.
No, he
Oh,
said
I'm
Star
sorry.
Trek theme
You mean
song.
musically?
Music.
Theme song.
Music.
Oh.
Dun dun.
Oh my God, you just blew my thing about our podcast making people better. Thanks a lot.
Well, he said theme, so
My
I
bad,
just
my
the
bad.
music part. I just thought he meant what Okay,
My bad. Theme music. Sorry, theme music.
the original series. I mean, that's just it gives me chills.
Alexander Courage. Okay.
There is something about the music from the original series during the episodes that is ingrained in my head. All of that stuff is just wonderful, wonderful music.
So that was
themes. The official theme songs, though. Gosh, that's so hard to pick. I liked Voyager a lot, and DS9 has its own. Yeah.
Jerry Goldsmith.
Mm-hmm.
Heather loves Enterprise.
That's Diane Warren. Diane Warren. She doesn't like it, but
You
she will
killed our
tell me-
Heather.
She will tell me her favorite, right?
My favorite was The Next Generation. You can't go wrong with the classic.
Again, composed by Jerry Goldsmith
And, the
and
movie
Alexander
theme,
Courage.
yeah.
Borrowed
For
from
me-
the motion picture, by the way.
Mhm.
For me, I think the theme song for you said the TV shows,
All of it.
all of them would have to be a toss-up between the movie version and Voyager. Voyager is just something kind of longing and also optimistic about that theme song that I really get into.
Again, Jerry Goldsmith. He got the Emmy for that.
Yeah, it's very nicely done.
Okay, so what would you say is your favorite version, class, whatever you want to call it, of the Enterprise?
Double
Enterprise
D?
E.
The D?
The double D.
I don't think there's a double D, Heather.
What-
There totally is a double D.
Okay.
What's a double D?
It's a bra size.
I don't know, man. Any ship more than a handful. I like the movie Enterprise from Motion Picture and Wrath of Khan. I love the original, refit of the Enterprise.
So you like the A, or the? Or
I guess.
picture?
Well, the A. I mean, before it was the AA. I mean, so
the
motion picture Wrath of Khan. Yeah.
Okay.
And of course the D is a beautiful thing too.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Patrick?
I'll go with the D.
The D?
Oh, you
Nathan?
always go. Okay. I really like the Sovereign class of the Enterprise. The Sovereign class, especially the way it was backlit against the Nebula in Star Trek Nemesis.
You're talking about the E, Enterprise E.
The E, thank you. The E is just visually, it's a very attractive looking ship. I really like it. I would have that thing in geosynchronous orbit above my house at all times.
And Heather, the real answer is?
I enjoy double Ds.
Okay.
The Defiant class.
Okay. Who is your favorite first officer?
Saru.
I gotta go back to Spock. You gotta love Spock.
Mr. Leonard Nimoy. Doug Jones plays Saru, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Saru and Spock. It's kind of yeah.
For me, it would have to be a combination. Also, I would say it would be Saru and Riker. The reason why with Riker is because this fierce determination, and he gets angry when he needs to be, and how loyal he is to the captain in his ship, and he has what a lot of people don't know how to do, which is controlled anger. He's angry, but he doesn't go like overboard with it. If that makes sense. If that makes sense.
Heather?
So,
Patrick and Saru. But Patrick.
Patrick. Oh.
Patrick.
Oh.
He's my number one.
Oh, now I feel bad. I should have said that. Oh man, that made me feel bad.
Yeah, Captain, you're not my favorite, Captain. Sorry.
Okay. You guys are real big fans of Discovery, aren't you?
Oh man. Dang
wow.
it.
Well,
Okay,
we've met Doug Jones a number of times, and he's
so
lovely human being. So it's kind of hard not to.
Yeah, I did an article. He's a hugger too. I did an article, a news article reviewing what was that? The water, deep water.
Yep. Shape of Water. Shape of
Water.
Oh, the sex one. Okay.
Hello. Last fast round question. Of all the series or movies, if you want to name a movie, which is your favorite episode? Is there any one story in any one series that stands out as, if you were thrown into a room and had to watch it 100 times, this would be the one that you'd be okay with?
In the Pale Moonlight for me.
The one with Picard where he lives an entire life in
Inner Light. That's called the Inner Light.
That's a really good one with the flute. That's a good one.
Resican flute. What did you say, Nathan?
For me, it would be In the Pale Moonlight. That's where Cisco has to figure a way to bring the Romulans into the war.
Okay.
And I thought that was really telling of character and everything else. I thought it was between that and the one where he went back in time and he was a writer.
Yeah, that's
those two are my favorite. Yeah, those two are my favorite.
That had a long title too. Rocky, what about you?
It's really hard to pick. There's so many good ones. I mean, I love the holodeck things. I love the adventures when Picard goes off and hangs out with Vash. When Q comes in and does amazing, wonderful things. I'll flip on Voyager and they're doing some amazing things. You watch Enterprise and they have some very, very cool mini episodes. The ones that weren't all big budget, but the bottle episodes. Some of those are just amazing. I can't pick. I mean, the movies I love. I'll go. Star Trek 2 was action adventure favorite until First Contact came out, and then First Contact is its own level of wonderful goodiness. But I love the motion picture. I love that. It's the adventure and mystique and all of that stuff. I mean, I love
often coined the motionless picture, but Okay.
It's not, and that's a very interesting, that you want to talk about the difference between yesterday's Star Trek and today's Star Trek. That was done by somebody who did movies back in the day. That director is, seriously old school director. They don't make movies
Robert Weiss.
Robert
Academy
Weiss, yeah.
Award winner.
The cuts don't happen as quickly as they do today. Movies would hold on a shot and let you think about it for a little bit. And if you ever got a chance to see it, they reissued motion picture in the theater, not, a couple of years back. And to sit in the theater, because I was always, I saw it as a little kid, don't remember it. But when it was on home, we watched the grainy VHS. When you see it on a massive screen, it blew you away. These visuals, these are all miniatures, actual physical things that they had to physically put in front of camera. There was not very many computers back then.
And add Jerry's score to that, and you've got a breathtaking experience.
Yeah.
I love the 10-minute round around the Enterprise. Most people hated it.
I got weepy when I saw that on the big screen again. I mean, it's amazing.
Okay. Heather, any favorite episodes or movies?
I have to say any of the Lower Decks episodes. Like Lower Decks is my favorite series out of all of them. So basically anything from there, I'm good.
And I gotta ask, why Lower Decks? Is it? I'm told it's like Family Guy in space. Is that it?
You haven't seen it?
I think I saw 2 episodes.
Okay, so you know what you're doing for the next couple days.
Unfortunately for me to see it, it's not on Blu-ray or DVD yet. The only reason I saw Discovery is because I got them in a bin, $5 off bin on Black Friday, and so I watched season 1 and season 2 of Discovery. But Lower Decks, the only way to see it is you got to pay for it. And
you're missing out. It's worth it.
I just got the season one Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Which,
so you could do the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
It's out? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Go on eBay. There you go.
It's really good. I mean, when Heather watched it, she attacked Patrick with a bat lift, screaming, "I must have honor. Give me honor." So it was quite awesome.
Wow. Okay. Have you seen any of the feature films, Heather?
Yeah. I don't know how many out of how many.
Okay.
I've seen a lot.
So mainly the newer ones. I'm sure you probably haven't seen.
I've seen some old ones because I've had friends show me old movies. We've talked about old movies on the podcast. I just don't know. Okay, I've seen 20 out of 30. I'm not sure about that. But I've seen enough.
So if I said Ricardo Montalban, would that mean anything to you?
Wrath of Khan.
That's it.
I
totally knew that one.
Not to be confused with Shaka Khan. Not to be confused with Shaka Khan.
If I said Heather, if I said George and Gracie, would that mean anything?
Will and Grace.
Whales here. There be whales here.
There be whales here.
You haven't seen the one with the whales?
Voyage home.
It's official. We're old.
The voyage home.
The
voyage home.
That one's funny.
The voyage home. Yeah, that's the voyage home.
As far as the features of the original series, I think Wrath of Khan is the best for dynamic energy and adventure. But for me, the most Trek was the Voyage Home, the fish out of water story. Literally,
Voyage Home was good. Excuse me, we had nuclear vessels. The what? Nuclear vessels in Alameda. Oh, they're in Alameda. That's what I said.
That was ad-libbed, right, Nathan?
No, I did not.
Yeah, that woman was supposed to be an extra. She stopped when Nichelle and Walter did their scene and responded, and Leonard thought that was the best take of 40 of them or something.
Yeah, it was really good.
So anyway, all right. So anything, closing comments, everybody? This was a delight for me. I hope you had fun as much as I did. Anything you want to tell the fans out there?
Watch us because you already watched the Geek Authority, which shows you have good taste. So if you want to expand on your good taste, watch us at starfleetunderground.com. And also, if you want to learn how to do a job at a casino free, go to Vegas Aces on the YouTube channel. Heather has a channel where she will teach you how to be a dealer for free. She has live casts, tables, everything else. And she's an amazing, amazing teacher. Patrick even knows how to hold a pack of cards without spilling them everywhere. So please make sure you watch.
Okay. Well, again, I want to thank you, everybody, for watching the show. I hope audience members, you got some information what a podcast is. You definitely want to check out their podcast. They've got quite a few episodes on there, and the technical side of it, the sound effects and the fun that they have. Again, warning: it's not for kids. There is a bit of language involved, so be warned. But if you haven't yet, please, somewhere on the screen, if everybody could point, there's a button that will allow you to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Don't forget to click the bell. And in case you don't know, besides this show, the Making Entertainment, I have the Geek Authority show, which I already mentioned. I have a show called Mysterious Chamber of Collectibles, which is where I pull out of my closet under my bed things that I've been collecting for years, including the original action figures, the Mego action figures from Star Trek. I also have a show called Unboxing, where I actually get products from different companies, Pops and the Dark series from Star Wars, things like that, and open them up for the very first time as they get released. You see them, I see them for the first time. I have reviews, comments, and commentary where I talk about different shows, Cobra Kai, Space 1999, that kind of thing. We get to talk with family and friends, so to speak. I have a new show that should be out by the time this is coming. It's called Playing Games with the Geek Authority. Basically, you get to watch me and my friends. We play one particular game from beginning to end with explanation of the rules and so on and so forth. Gives you a consideration if you might want to get it for yourself, for your family and friends. It's hopefully going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully you'll tune into that. And with that said, everyone, thank you so much once again. Nathan Adams, Heather Ferris, Patrick Hall, and Rocky Robinson. These are the wizards behind Starfleet Underground. It's a podcast. You definitely have to listen to it. I'm on it too, so you have to find me somewhere. But anyway, let's say goodbye. Thank you so much for doing this. Hopefully, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.